I don't believe in ghosts, spirits, or anything supernatural, but that night was weird. It was my senior year of high school, and my two friends, Nick and Noah, and I had this weekend ritual, exploring any supposedly haunted place we could find. We'd scour the internet for lists of local ghost stories and creepy spots, ticking them off one by one. Most were disappointing, just urban legends or strange coincidences. There was a forest where there was a light at a specific time in the night. We never saw it. There was a bridge where you were supposed to honk at midnight, flash your headlights 3 times, and something magical would happen. Nothing ever did. Then, we saw a name at the bottom of the list, the Norp House. Apparently it was once a plantation house. When Union soldiers came to free the slaves, the owner hung them from the trees surrounding the property rather than let them go. Over time, the house had fallen into disrepair, with just enough updates to make it livable before it was abandoned for good. After some debate, we decided to explore the house. So the weekend rolled around, and around 3 a.m. we packed into my Pontiac Bonneville for the 30-minute drive to the house. The rain was light but steady, the kind that settles into your bones, and the roads dead. I know it was 3 a.m., but we saw not a single car. The house was set back from the road, gated off, with only a small gravel lot nearby where we could park. It seemed like a maintenance area for the adjacent railroad. The lot was clearly visible from the road, and we joked nervously about how easy it would be for a cop to see my car and suspect we were up to no good. Still, we had no other choice but to park there. The first thing we noticed was the gate, or rather, what was left of it. 2 brick pillars flanked the entrance to a long, overgrown dirt driveway. Whatever gate had once been there was gone, replaced by 3 cement blocks that made it impossible for cars to pass through. We climbed over them, officially stepping onto the Norp property. The online list had called these brick pillars the gates to hell, claiming they had some mystical effect on anyone who walked through. I didn't feel anything supernatural, just the chill of a damp October night. As we continued down the path, the woods grew thicker, and without our flashlights, we would have been lost. The trail was barely visible, and we kept stumbling, losing our footing in the mud. After what felt like hours of navigating through the trees, we reached a shallow creek. I crossed easily, thankful for my waterproof boots. But Noah, who'd worn slides of all things, cursed under his breath as he waded through. Just when we started doubting whether we were even on the right path, I shined my flashlight ahead, and there it was. A massive white wall loomed out of the darkness, so sudden and imposing that it made my heart skip a beat. The house seemed to have materialized out of nowhere, its decrepit form nearly swallowed by the overgrowth. The roof had partially collapsed, scattering debris across the yard, and part of the basement wall had caved in, exposing its insides. A rusty air vent dangled precariously from the basement ceiling, creaking in the wind. We approached the house cautiously, circling around the side in search of the front door. The property was so overgrown that we felt like we were trekking through a forest, vines and thorns tugging at our clothes. Then we heard it. A faint shuffling sound just ahead of us. We froze, exchanging uneasy glances. It was the kind of sound that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up, as if something or someone was stirring in the basement that had access to the outside thanks to a broken-down wall. My first thought was that a homeless person had taken up residence in the house, and we were about to trespass on their territory. See, I knew it wasn't a ghost, but I thought it was either a guy or a deer about to charge me. "Back up," I whispered, motioning for Nick and Noah to retreat. We all backed a few feet, then stood still, straining our ears, and the shuffling sound grew louder. The wind had died completely, and yet the noise continued. "Is that a guy? Or an animal?" I called into the darkness, gripping my pocket knife tightly. In retrospect, it was a dumb question. I mean, what was I expecting? An animal to answer, "Hey, yeah, I'm just a raccoon." Still, the tension was palpable, and I wasn't taking any chances. I edged forward, my knife at the ready, the shuffling sound intensifying with every step I took, one step closer, another. And then I saw it, the terrifying creature responsible for all the noise. An armadillo. The 3 of us relaxed, the tension evaporating as quickly as it had come. I pocketed my knife, feeling both ridiculous and relieved. We inspected the little fella just minding its business and decided to leave it be and not explore the basement. We continued our trek around the house, finally reaching the front door. There wasn't actually a door there, but I assumed that's where the door was supposed to be. Inside, the house was even worse than we'd imagined. The floors were covered in shattered glass, walls battered as if someone had gone at them with a sledgehammer. Graffiti covering the few walls that remain, some of it surprisingly artistic, some of it just messy tags. The layout was straightforward, 4 rooms on the bottom floor, 4 on the top. The 4th room on the bottom floor was completely caved in. The floor had collapsed, creating a hole that led straight down into the basement. The floor above was in nearly as bad a shape as the one below, so we decided to steer clear of that area and head upstairs instead. We passed the stairs leading to the basement. Well, I guess they weren't stairs, as there were none, just a sheer drop. I was relieved I had my flashlight. Without it, I might have missed the 9-foot drop onto the rubble and concrete below. The stairs up were steep and creaky, their worn carpet treads barely clinging on. Upstairs, the back left room contained remnants from previous explorers, a grill and a few beer cans. I guess the people before us were much less creeped out than we were. Eventually, we finally reached the master bedroom, essentially 2 rooms without a separating wall. The room was empty, covered in graffiti, and still without any furniture. At this point, no ghosts had shown themselves, so we decided to bring out the big guns, a Ouija board. Nick had brought it along, and we set it up in the middle of the room. I placed my phone leaning on the support pillar in the middle of the room, providing light and filming the session. We gathered around the board, placed our hands on the planchette, the Ouija triangle thing, and began the ritual. The first question we asked was, "Is anyone there?" To our shock, the planchette began moving. We were all adamant we weren't moving it. I still talk to Nick all the time, and he still promises that he was not moving it. And Noah also promises it wasn't him the last times we talked about it. The answers it spelled out were nonsensical, random letters and numbers that didn't make any sense. We kept asking questions, and we would keep getting random letters as answers. We were about to call it quits. Then Noah decided to ask, "Are you the owner, or are you at SLA?" Before he could even finish his question, the light from my phone abruptly shut off, plunging us into darkness. It took a moment for me to switch on my other light, and when I checked my phone, I found that the battery was completely dead. I had charged it fully before we left, so I still don't know how it happened. We sat there, feelings of fear and confusion fighting for power. Breaking the silence, Noah suggested that maybe supernatural entities feed off electrical power. It really didn't make us feel any better, and I didn't buy into that anyway. After the Ouija board and the unsettling phone blackout, we decided it was best to cut our exploration short. I didn't want to risk having my car spotted by the police, so we quickly packed up our things and made our way back downstairs. As we passed the gaping hole leading to the basement, the graffiti and the destroyed walls, the cold autumn rain hit us again as we stepped outside. We made our way back to the rear of the house, glancing back at our armadillo friend, who seemed to have found shelter from the rain among the remains of the basement. As we made our way through the trashed rear of the house, the silence was suddenly shattered by the roar of an engine. The sound was coming from the direction where I had parked the car. There shouldn't have been anyone else around. We heard the sound of tires screeching and gravel being kicked up. Panic set in. We immediately assumed that high schoolers, or someone, were messing with my car. We decided to run back to the car as quickly as possible. In my mind, I hoped I locked the doors or that they wouldn't break in. Mud covered our shoes and pants as we sprinted through the creek and up the trail. I was no longer cold, but instead sweating from the running. Reaching the gravel lot, we jumped over the concrete blocks at the gate to hell and finally arrived at my car. We stopped. There was no one around. The engine noise had completely stopped, and there was no sign of anyone having been there. Looking back, I don't even remember the sound fading like they were driving away. It's almost like it just stopped, like something wanted us out of that house and did whatever they could to make that happen. And it worked. We got into the car, locked the doors and went home, relieved that no one was hurt and my car was unharmed. To this day, I don't believe in the supernatural, but that night was weird. And that's my story.